This is Casey Ellert with Bass Brawl Outdoors, and we're out fishing today, early September, up in Minnesota. Lots of things are changing in the last couple of weeks on our lakes. Coontails dying off big time. The panfish, bluegills, minnows, they were out on a lot of deep spots. They've scattered. There's some out deep, there's some up in the thinning out weeds. And with that, the bass have changed. You catch some in all different types of spots on the lake now. There has been a few big schools, but you have to move around, cover a lot of water, and you gotta just keep at it until you get onto something. What we're doing right now is we're out in about 20 feet of water on some deep rocks. There's some laydowns on the bottom, big rock, little rock, gravel, bunch of stuff. And there's a bunch of bait fish and bluegills out here. So we're just gonna take this 3/4 ounce all-terrain AT jig, and we're just gonna drag it across those rocks and see what happens. Okay, so we have these rocks marked, and what we did is we pulled up close, dropped the trolling motor with the 360, and we're just slowly pulling up till we see them on the 360 screen. Right now, I have rocks both directions from the boat. The spot lock on the Ultrex is holding us still in this wind, and I can just fan cast my jig and know I covered the key spots on the end of this rock bar with wood. If I was just holding out here without spot lock, if I said took on a fish, odds are the boat's gonna move a little bit, you're gonna miss stuff. Right now, I am locked down and I can just sit here. I can start at this angle on the edge, and every cast just keep working to the right. And if I catch a fish, I can repeat that same cast because the boat's not moving. That one there picked it up out of the rocks. I was snagged. And as I was getting ready to jerk out of that rock, he picked it right out of there. Feels like a really nice largemouth. Oh yeah. So I started fan casting on my left side on my 5th cast as I worked each area of this rock bar. 5th cast, this fish picked it up out of the rocks. Now I know when I stand back up here, I can aim that same cast. I'm gonna hit that same angle because that spot lock's got me stuck here on the spot. 22 feet deep, 3/4 ounce all-terrain AT jig, just working over some rocks and wood laydowns on the bottom. Okay, so we just caught that fish on the 5th cast as we work this spot here. Spot lock still has us sitting on the same spot. I'm just gonna duplicate that cast, come across that same area in case there's a school of fish sitting there. Those first 4 casts, I didn't get a bite, a tick, nothing off of those. On my screens, I have the 360 on full screen up front. And then on this bottom Solix, on the left side, I have my GPS map, and on the right side, I have the sonar underneath the boat. Tons of information that helps me catch these deep fish. Now that fish picked it up when I was stuck in a rock and I was jerking on it, so I'm gonna just kind of work this jig a little faster on this retrieve and see if I can duplicate that where it kind of gets them to react to it. There's something picked the jig up. There. Same exact line as the previous cast. 2 nice Minnesota largemouth on back-to-back casts, and that spot lock is what's doing it. I'm not moving here. I can just focus on standing up, firing a cast, and focusing on my jig as I work it in the boat. Okay, so 2 casts in a row at this angle here. By holding here and looking at the 360 screen, I know where there's a little lane in those rocks there where I made those casts. Super easy to stand up and fire the exact same line cast and work it over the exact spot. I started by just dragging that jig real slow, but now the last 2 fish, it was more of a snappy jumping of that jig to get them to bite. 3 casts in a row on that exact same line. If I didn't have this spot lock holding me exactly like this, it would be almost impossible to fight a fish, get it unhooked, keep the boat in the same spot, and make that exact same cast. Okay, now the wind's switching a little bit. I'm still locked down, but the back of the boat's positioned different because of the wind. So I just can't get that angle and cast here. I'm going to be way off. So here, I'm watching the 360 still, and I can see the one thicker clump, and there's a little lane, a little opening next to it. I put my cast on the exact same spot as those last 3 fish came off of. 4 casts in a row on the exact same opening in the rocks. "22 feet of water, spot locks hold me beautiful." And I'm just sitting here popping a 3/4 ounce all-terrain AT jig, hard snaps on the bottom, and it's getting those fish to go at it. Okay, 4 fish in a row. Looking at the 360 again. The boat swung just a little bit with the wind direction, but that big rock bar in that lane's right here. Just feed it line so that jig drops straight to the bottom, and then I'm just gonna start popping it again. There. 5 casts in a row, putting that jig in the same spot. Another dandy largemouth. Water temps down to 65 degrees up here. And I am on a mega school out in 22 feet of water, deep rocks, some lay down, no weeds out this deep, but it is full of nice fish. Okay, 360 just refreshed again. I'm not casting at a waypoint and trying to guess where I'm at. This 360, my jig is landing right on the sweet spot there. Every single cast counts when you're using these electronics like this. There. 6 casts in a row. Just real aggressive popping of the jig. There's a nice one. Look at that one. Dandy Minnesota largemouth. And there's so many pieces that make this possible. I mean, you got the scanning with the Solix, the mega imaging, finding these key spots. You got the 360 to be able to pull right up to them, see where your cast is going. And then you have the Ultrex with the spot lock to just keep you on the spot and be able to catch these fish, check your line, retie, put new trailers on, have a snack, whatever you want to do, and the boat's just keeping us here. Dandy Minnesota largemouth. Okay, I'm gonna make one more cast over where I started, but I'm gonna use that more snappy retrieve instead of just dragging it. And then also the other part of that is when you smoke 6 fish off a spot like right there, it can easily push the school over, or they can just be going up and down the bar. So it's good to check that spot again. There. Went back to where we first started, that very first cast, and just changed the retrieve up. And it made all the difference. So fun thumping bass on big jigs out in deep water. Okay, so I got this 3/4 ounce jig and I'm just threading on a big green pumpkin chunk. I have 2 rattles on this jig, Texas cross skirt, and that AT jig from All Terrain Tackle has the rough bottom on the jig head. And when you're popping that and draining over rocks, it just totally transmits and vibrates on your rod tip. So you know when you're on those key spots. So I got my jig stuck in the rock and I snapped my line. And here's another key advantage of that spot lock. I can retie this quick and not drift a half mile off my spot, or try to stand up there and balance while I'm tying my jig back on. I can focus solely on getting this right, and I know when I stand back up there, I'm going to be right in the same spot. There, we just moved about 25 feet down in the first cast. Oh, you got me wrapped in a lay down piece down there. But the first cast, another nice jig fish. So fun to thump nice bass on these heavy jigs out deep. You feel that thunk and you can just lay into them. Okay, so we just bumped over about 20 feet again. Oh, first cast after moving again. That's the second time in a row we just moved over 20 feet and first cast gave us a fish. This one feels like a tank. Oh, just another fat chunk here. Out in deep water, they're just pounding these big 3/4 ounce AT jigs. Got a pretty stiff wind blowing here. Not too wavy because it's a smaller lake. Waves don't have a chance to get real big. Just another nice jig fish out deep. Okay, I'm dropping it down on a monster rock. It could be an 8 to 10 foot wide rock. Oh, big fish right next to that big rock. Monster rock and a monster fish. Oh. It don't get much better than that. That 360, I was just moving around that bar a little bit because they quit biting, and a huge rock showed up on the screen. I pitched that jig about 15 feet in front of the boat in 22 feet of water, and this fish just crushed it. Okay, so I got that monster rock right off the side here, like right there. And then there's a line of big rock, and there's a couple pieces of wood laying down there because I can see the shadow of the branches. Perfect spot for a school of fish to be sitting on it. I'm going to take a screenshot of that big rock so you can see it. Right when I got in front of that boat by that big rock again. Not very big, but it's another fish. Got two nice rocks and some wood laying there. Drug the jig right over it and another chunk. Okay, so I caught that fish, I hit spot lock. One quick glance here again, and the line of rocks goes this way, right where I put that cast. So the entire cast, when I bring this in, is gonna be bouncing off that little thin rock edge. There. That entire cast I could fill that big heavy jig dragging on the rocks. And it's not a wide rocks patch, it's like a line of single rocks. I mean, you have to be right on it or you're off of it. You don't just get lucky on that, it's gotta be right there. They're right in front of the boat, a little bit to the right. So that cast there again should come right over the heart of that line. A little bit of wood mixed in. No weed growth out here, just a little too deep. Plus a lot of stuff's dying off here. Oh! Another one right on that line of rocks. You know, when you use everything, it almost makes it too easy, especially if you're around the fish. I mean, every single cast is coming along the rocks, the wood. Since we started here, I haven't made one cast just guessing where it was going. It was directly to a rock, a piece of wood, a rock edge, the tip of the rocks. You know, fishing like this with all these electronics in the 360, it's not even fishing. They should call it sniping, because it's unbelievable how you can put every single cast throughout the day right on the heart of the cover. No guessing. It's so much more efficient when every single cast throughout the day is exactly where it needs to be. Another one. If this doesn't convince you what that 360 can do, man, I don't know what else to do. I mean, it's cast after cast after cast. Look at that big giant. Look at that. Fish after fish, putting the jig on the cover. It don't get any better than this. Just crushing the fish out deep. Okay, so my cast again is right on this little clump of rocks that showed up. We're kind of up a little shallower. You know, those first fish we were on were out in that 22 feet. Now we're in that 15, 16 feet. And it looks like there's a school on this rock clump. Cast after cast, dropping that jig on the sweet spots. Oh, the boat kind of came off the edge. It must make a little turn there on that hump. And if I wouldn't have had that 360 to show me that in front of the boat, I would have been off there casting out in way too deep of water. And I saw where it turned there and fired the jig up. Oh, and that's about as good of a reward as you can get. This fish right here, 100% 360 showing me that turn from that deep water where it came back up to shallow and I put the jig there. Okay, that line of scattered rock kind of turns here and we just caught up with it again. You can feel that jig banging into the rocks. There. Yeah, we just keep creeping forward a little bit, covering new water. We're putting some tankers in the boat on heavy jigs. Just quality fish, fish after fish. Can't complain about the size of these. Okay, now there's another giant rock in front of the boat. It's got to be about a 5 to 6 foot wide rock. Okay, I just felt one rock 50 feet in front of the boat. So I'm just going to do a straight cast, feed it line. I should come right over that big rock. Oh, right. I don't know, when the fish are biting, sometimes it's just too easy with these electronics. I mean, to pull up and see that big rock and fire a cast, hit it dead on. Another quality fish off one of those big giant rocks. This one's probably about a 5 to 6 foot wide one. Just lined it up with the 360, fired that big heavy jig out there, brought it up alongside there. Got the fish. Right underneath the boat. I thought I felt one on that last cast and I just killed it. Another solid fish. Fish after fish after fish on these big heavy jigs out in deep rock. Thick, quality largemouth. Oh, right next to that big rock again. I just crept up to it with the 360 and I was just dead on it. Oh. Okay, we just finished up fishing that whole bar. It starts and kind of makes a U. We worked our way along there. We ran that video, I don't know what it was, we'll have to look at the clock, but it looked like about 2.5 hours. And there was a bunch of fish on there. I just got done weighing the 7 biggest. 2 of the big ones were 4 3/4, a few 4 1/2s, and then 4 1/4, and then just 4 2s, 4 3s. But solid fish. We're up here in Minnesota, early fall. Fish are mixed all over the lake, but we found a school of big fish out on these deep rocks. You know, most of them are on that 22 feet. Just throwing big heavy jigs, popping them, dragging them, mixing it up. Biggest thing is getting their attention so they see it, because they're in that mode where they're gonna come crush it. So I'm gonna talk about what I look for when I come out on our lakes here. Most of our lakes are just small natural lakes. Most have thick weeds, rocks, wood, mixture of everything. Right now, we have fish shallow, fish deep. What I look for when I come out deep are the rocks, gravel, any kind of structure out in the deepest water, and all I do is scan it. And I scan it like a field. I mean, I make a pass, and if I'm shooting 100 feet on each side, I swing the boat and go over 200 feet and then come back up, so I'm covering everything. And I make maps. And I'm looking at that, and I mark the rocks, I mark the wood, I mark gravel patches. At home on the computer, you can put that on there, and you can actually set waypoints, draw paths, outline your stuff. You can highlight your rocks in different colors, and then I can import that on my Humminbird units. And on my map screen, everything's laid out and color coordinated. Right here though, I'm just keying on these deep rocks. I have them marked waypoints on the Humminbird units, and I pull up to each set with that 360, and I put those casts right on those rocks. It's as simple as that. If you're seeing bait fish, sunfish, big fish on the 2D as you're fishing these rocks, as your boat's just off the edge and there's stuff lighting up on the screen and there's activity, you can almost guarantee that there's big fish on these spots. And that's exactly what happened today. I saw minnows and different things on the 2D underneath the boat almost constantly, and every once in a while big streaks would come through. But on the 360, I was just pinpointing each piece of cover, dragging the rock on it, or the jig on it, popping those rocks, and I was finding those fish and catching the aggressive ones. I could have probably slowed down every spot I caught fish and used a drop shot or something slower, but the way they were biting the jig, I just kept moving and covering new water and grabbing those active fish.